Hello, my dearie dears. It's been a long time since I've read a story here. Why is that? I think I've been teaching more lessons, so I haven't had as much time to let my brain wander and think about what story I want to read. But I went to the library the other day. I went to the Champlain Heights Library because I'm here in Vancouver, and I found this cool book called The Lady with the Books. Sounds like me. So it's about a lady in just after World War II who realized how important books are for kids and adults too, because even when I read these kids' books, I sure learn a lot. So she had the idea that reading stories to kids from all different countries would help kind of bridge gaps, cultural gaps and ethnic gaps and religious gaps, like things that people didn't understand about other ethnicities, religions, and cultures. It would really give them insight into those things and help create understanding and trust and empathy and all those things that are super important for us to have an understanding of. So I found this book and I'm going to read it to you. But first I want to tell you a really cool thing that I saw the other day. I went to Jericho Beach for a little nature walk, and I didn't know about this path that's there. It's kind of up behind the beach. There's all these trees and woods up there and a path that goes along there. And when I was walking, I saw a bunch of little frogs. It was so cool. And I haven't seen frogs in Vancouver ever. I don't do a ton of nature walking up in the mountains. I do kind of more like around the city. But that was a really neat thing to see. So you should go check it out. Maybe you'll see some little frogs there. Watch them hopping around in the damp, mushy mud up on the trail there. Yeah, so I'm going to turn the camera around and I'm going to read you this great book. See you on the other side. Okay, so here's the book. It's called The Lady with the Books, a story inspired by the remarkable work of Jelle Lepman. So she was a German who lived in Germany after World War II. And if you didn't know, Germany was the country that had kind of initiated the war. So they were people that a lot of other countries feared and didn't really trust or like anymore very much. So this teaches us a little bit about that. Let us set this upside-down world right again by starting with the children. They will show the grown-ups the way to go. Jelle Lepman, 1945. Anneliese kicked at the dirt and rubble on the sidewalk. Women were still clearing away chunks of broken buildings and pavement with brooms in their bare hands. Couldn't they see that the street would never be what it had been before the war? So sometimes when there's a war, there can be some very, very scary bombing and shooting, and some places will try and destroy other places to take control of them and scare them. And it's very, very scary, and people have to hide under the ground in places called bunkers or sometimes in train tunnels, and it can be very confusing for kids because they don't understand what's happening, and it's very confusing for the adults too. It's very scary because you have nowhere to go. So they're cleaning up all the broken pieces of the building, sweeping, cleaning up the pieces of rocks, and here you can see some people are lining up for free soup because when there's a war happening, a lot of times the food disappears because there's not a way for the food to get into the country or into the city, and people don't have enough money to buy food, and some of the grocery stores are closed or have been destroyed. It's very, very scary and sad. So people are lining up there to get some soup, but there's still flowers growing here, and people are trying to do their best to make it better again. At the market, Anneliese spotted an orange peel on the ground. She wiped off the dirt as best she could, and even though her stomach grumbled, she gave it to her brother. See, he's holding it there. He's eating it. Peter gnawed the inside of it. He said. Danke. That means thank you in German. Nearby, a line of people was disappearing into a long building. Maybe, Anneliese thought, someone was giving out food. She took Peter's hand and moved into the line. So you can see how hungry they are that they have to eat orange peels off the ground because they just don't have enough food to eat. It's very, very, very kind of lonely and sad place to be when you don't have food to eat. It makes you very tired and cold and all those things that food does to make you feel healthy and strong. If you don't have it, it can make you feel very weak and tired and cold and all those things. So look at this. They're inside some sort of a library here. Inside the great hall were books. More books than Annalise could count. She felt her heart lift, then a sudden pang. Papa used to take her to the library when he read her Pooh de Bar. I think that means Winnie the Pooh. At bedtime. He used a different voice for each character, the donkey, the kangaroo, the piglet, and, best of all, Pooh himself. Now the library was gone, and Papa was gone too. I wonder what happened to her dad. He might have died in the war. That would be very, very sad. Look at all the kids looking at books. Books can give you a real sense of calm and peace. It's quiet and you're in a safe room. Okay, so here is this nice lady. Across the room, a lady was pulling books from a shelf and talking excitedly to a group of adults. Annalise caught the word hope just as Peter began tugging at her sleeve. "Read me this. I can't read that language," Annalise said. "Why do you want a story about an elephant anyway?" "Because I've never seen an elephant in a suit before." Annalise and Peter got so busy looking at books they didn't notice when they were the only visitors left in the hall. The lady with the books came over and said, "I'm afraid the exhibition is closing now." Peter hugged the elephant book to his chest. "May I please take this home?" "I'm sorry," said the lady. "I wish I could, but you're welcome to come back tomorrow." So I guess it's not a lending library. It's just like a place where you can go visit. Maybe they don't have enough books to be able to borrow them out. Out on the street, Peter was too tired to walk. Annalise picked him up and carried him home. Mama was cooking up the last of the barley. She gave what little there was to Annalise and Peter. After supper, Mama took her Oma's old teapot from the shelf. It had survived the bombing with just one dent. "Tomorrow," she said, "I'll try to trade it for some fresh vegetables and maybe a spoonful of butter." So you can see they have very, very little to eat. Just a little bit of barley for one day, and then tomorrow the mom has to take that teapot to sell it so that they can buy more food. It really helps us to remind us that we should be really grateful for the things we have when we're so lucky to have fridges full of lots of food, and we can go to the store and pretty much get whatever we want. There's so many things to choose from. We can have vegetables and fruit and all those things that we want. Variety all year round. At the market the next day, Annalise eyed sausages hanging above the baskets of fruits and vegetables. Did she dare snatch just one juicy fat wurst when the vendor turned his back? "Can we go back to the book building today?" Peter's question so surprised Annalise that she missed her chance. Just as well. Mama wouldn't like it if she'd been caught stealing, and it would be good to be amongst those books again. You can look at all the pictures. Back then, in that time, there was no computer. There were no computers. There was no internet. There was no way to look at images and search things, like if you wanted to look up, what does this country look like? Or what does this flower look like? Or what does this word mean? You wouldn't be able to just look on the internet and find out. You'd have to go to a library and look up those things. And if you didn't have a library, then you would just have to imagine it in your head. You would never know. Back inside the great hall, a group of children was gathering around the lady with the books. Peter pulled Annalise to the front. "This is the story of Ferdinand," the lady said. "It was written in English, so I'll translate parts of it into German for you. The pictures will help tell the story too." As the story unfolded, Peter whispered, "That bull is just like me. He likes flowers and he doesn't like fighting." When it was clear that the bull would not fight like the bullfighters wanted him to, Annalise was afraid to look. Her papa had been shot for standing up to men whose orders he didn't want to follow. I feel really bad for them that they don't have a dad anymore, that one of their parents is gone. That's very, very hard to lose somebody from your family that you love so much. With the turning of the page, Peter started clapping. Annalise was happy too to see Ferdinand, after all he had been through, back on his flowery hill. "Did you enjoy that?" the lady asked. "Did you have a favorite part?" "When he wouldn't fight, when he got to go back home, when he sat on the bee." The lady laughed. "I like those parts too." It's good to point out, to notice the certain parts in the book that are your favorite and think about them. Here are more stories I hope you will get to read in German someday. Pinocchio from Italy, Heidi from Switzerland, Babar from France. "That's my elephant," said Peter. Turning to Annalise, the lady said, "I think you would like this story from Sweden. Pippi has no parents, and when the police try to take her to an orphanage, she outwits them. She is very clever and very strong. She can lift her pet horse with one hand. Annalise smiled. She has a pet horse? And a pet monkey. I love that book, Pippi Longstocking. It's so funny. On the way home, Annalise thought about Pippi, who had lost both her parents and yet did just fine for herself. Back home, Alma was poking a long spoon into a pot. Annalise's mouth watered. That smells wonderful. The farmer was generous, Mama said, and on the way home, I caught a pigeon. We'll have enough stew for 2 days. So they're going to have some yummy supper. And look, these people are still cleaning up. And notice how it's a lot of them are women and mums, because quite often when there's a war, the dads and the men will go and fight in the war, and they don't come back sometimes. It's very sad. That night at bedtime, Peter asked Annalise for a story. Once upon a time, she said, as her brother nestled in beside her, there was a boy who had a green suit. He liked flowers more than anything, and he had a pet horse, Peter said. You'd like a pet horse? Yes, and maybe a monkey. Kind of fun to imagine what things you might have in your life, what pets and what places you'll live and places you'll see. Oh, look, she's imagining being Pippi Longstocking and lifting up the horse with one hand. Later that night, Annalise awoke. High in the dark sky, the moon shone brightly. Careful not to disturb Peter or Mama, she got up and stepped outside. How beautiful the trees looked out in the moonlight, the flowers too, blooming among the chunks of rubble. Tomorrow, Annalise decided, she would join the women with their brooms. She would help clear the street around the damaged library, and maybe someday the building would again be filled with books. But for now, she would go back to bed and sleep, like Ferdinand in his field of flowers, and she would dream. It's very important to not ever stop dreaming and having hope for things to be better, for things to change. So here's the lady with the books. The lady with the books was a real person. Jella Lettmann was born in Germany in 1891. In 1936, she and her 2 children had to flee the country. With Adolf Hitler as a leader, their lives were in danger because they were Jewish. During a period known as the Holocaust, Hitler and the Nazi government had millions of people killed, Jewish people and anyone else they considered inferior. Books that did not agree with their ideas were removed from libraries, bookstores, even homes, and then burned. In 1939, German forces invaded Poland. To stop Hitler and the Nazis from taking over more countries, Britain and France declared war on Germany. Soon, more nations joined the fight known as World War II. When Germany lost the war in 1945, Jella returned to her home country, Germany. She was given the job of helping German children whose lives had been so badly disrupted. She decided that, as much as food, books were what the children needed. So that's the end of the story. So I'm going to flip this around and tell you a little bit about what happened with Jella Lettmann. So what did you think about that book? It's pretty incredible what can happen with knowledge and information, right? Like, Jella went back to the country that she had fled from to work with the kids to help them to learn about all these incredible other countries. And she was really brave, and she wrote letters to all those countries that Germany had kind of been at war with and had been fighting with and had been invading. And she said, can you please send us books for our kids? And a lot of those countries at first said, no, we don't want to have anything to do with you. You guys did a really bad thing. But one thing we have to remember is that just because the leaders of a country or leaders within places that we are every day, just because they make bad decisions doesn't mean that the people that surround those leaders in that country are bad people. And we need to be empathetic and understanding. So books can build these really incredible bridges between communities, between people, between religions, between beliefs. And it's really incredible how when Jella decided to do that, she persisted and she said, no, I really think this is important. I really think these kids need to have some hope and some dreams and some imagination to help lift their spirits and give them the perseverance to continue and go forward and make incredible lives for themselves. So I hope you guys take that lesson and you feel resilient and excited, and you make the choice in your life to be a person who is full of light and energy and positivity. Obviously, we can't always be positive, but you know, you can be a positive person. You can make good choices and be friendly and open and warm and loving to people who are different from you, who you see as different, and you'll realize shortly that they aren't so different from you, that we're all very much alike. We all love our families, and we love being creative, and we love seeing exciting things, and that's all that really matters. We're all very much alike in the end. So I hope you guys have a great spring, exploring all the beautiful nature around and seeing all the beautiful flowers and animals that are out there. And don't forget to go to the library and get some great books. Keep learning. All right, I'll talk to you soon.